Cloud Atlas is a very good novel, one that is a collection of loosely linked stories, but the linkage is not all that important. I would say that the linkage is actually an affectation, a gimmick, and a kind of imposition on the reader to trick them into reading a collection of short stories. So I don't think I'm going to be spoiling the movie in this video review, but I would encourage you to view Cloud Atlas before viewing this video, unless of course you are using this review to help you decide if you should see it. And my vote is a reluctant but definite yes, you should, simply because the production value is so extraordinary. The acting is terrific, but the film bears a huge black mark in my mind for conflating the idea of confusing with deep. And it's precisely this issue that is the subject of this video. Because boy do I hate having to say this, but one simple thing could fix the entire film. Put the dang stories in a straight line. The film cuts between 6 nested stories, and by doing this severely undermines the audience's ability to identify with or otherwise care about each of the characters. Each time the film cuts to another story, I found myself crying out. The film overemphasizes a plot device used by Mitchell to allow him to do nothing more than get away with putting together a collection of 6 very good short stories that are sort of showboating a sampler platter of multiple genres and styles, all of which Mitchell succeeds at marvelously. And the directors of Cloud Atlas, Tom Twicker and the Wachowski brothers, also succeed in distinguishing each of these nested stories as a very distinct genre, each of their own, reusing actors to further reinforce this theme of reincarnation or repetition of various tendencies within the human spirit, but they cut between stories more often than the book, and the perceived importance of the cuts of all these connections, well, it's just this thing that fails. The movie pushes too hard with what is an arbitrary connection between several otherwise unrelated or perhaps nominally related stories. And this is what we call a plot device in literature, a term often used pejoratively with a negative connotation, and so too is this the case right now. It's when something drives the plot forward and only drives the plot forward, or how Wikipedia puts it, a contrived arbitrary plot device instead of one that emerges naturally from the story. Hey look, there's our friend Deus Ex Machina, which is a kind of plot device I talked about in another video. I'll link that at the end. So I guess there's plot devices, and there's plot devices.
But there's the truth and the truth. Let me show you.
So why did author David Mitchell build this plot device in the first place? Well, in this clip, he talks about it being a sort of whimsical intellectual experiment.
To see if I could write such a mad book and it still hold together and not fly apart. What's the biggest scope? What's the biggest range of a novel I could do? I just wanted to see if I could do it, just as almost a sort of intellectual curiosity experiment thing. And I did, and to my surprise, the book was successful. It's still the most successful thing I've done.
So as a writer myself, I'm perturbed by authors who figure out ways to sell their short story collections as novels by coming up with some kind of an arbitrary plot device in order to say to a publisher, I know you don't want short story collections because they don't sell well, but hey, this is a linked short story collection. Or it goes even farther now where this is a novel, and the first of it that I remember in my time was Lori Moore's good old Anagrams, which is a good book, and she probably had a very good idea for it, but I can't help but be suspicious that the idea was, let's link these together in some way. But when it goes a little bit farther is Letham's Amnesia Moon, which is no doubt, and I've been told that he's admitted this before, a collection of short stories that he's pasted together by creating a plot device, something that feels extremely arbitrary, and it makes these things go in a narrative linear fashion, so there's actually a straight line to the story, and yet you feel like you're reading all these different things. So in the case of Cloud Atlas, I think the same is happening here, that it's a really good author with really good stories that are very diverse, and rather than just have a diverse collection of 6 stories, there is this thing that keeps returning that doesn't feel like it really needs to be there. And with the film, that thing that links them all together is so recurrent, and the switching between the narratives is so recurrent that it's a little off-putting overall, and that maybe the producers and directors should not have made the emphasis be that. I don't mean to begrudge Mitchell, because in the book, the reader doesn't mind that there's a subtle nod to the notion that the human spirit can be reincarnated or can continue to possess certain idiosyncrasies, or that deja vu might recall a previous life, or that we live in a world of wild coincidence. The reader doesn't mind because it's not integral to the cohesion of each story. Whereas Cloud Atlas, the film, makes a seemingly crucial transitions between the stories that, by virtue of a film moving faster than a book, are happening too often, and they just derail the mood and the tenor of each of these individual stories. Making matters worse, the film begins to move increasingly faster between these stories, making the movement itself take center stage as the stories themselves wink out like the sparkling vapor trail of a comet. So in the case of Cloud Atlas the film, it would seem Hollywood has taken too seriously a trick of prose writers to woo publishers and has mistaken the packaging for the product.
I believe there is another world waiting for us, a better world. And I'll be waiting for you there.